today.
Yes, great to be here.
Great to be here. So hello, everyone. I know there's a bit of a commotion because of the last pitches. So we have 20 minutes in a somewhat unconventional format because we're going to be interviewing one another.
Yes.
So the first time I'm doing this, but I think it's going to be fun. For some quick words of introduction, this is Maria. Maria is actually the co-founder and CEO of Unlock, which is a very exciting company building a culture infrastructure platform that enables any company out there to think about their culture in a very purposeful manner and basically use activities, asynchronous, synchronous, to build ritual and cultures in their businesses. And my name's Judith. I'm a general partner at La Famiglia. We're an early stage venture fund based in Berlin, but investing across Europe and the US. And we're also very proud investors in Unlock. And so today we're going to talk about building an anti-boring product, building an anti-boring company. And so I want to start off, Maria, by asking you, how the hell do you go about building an anti-boring product?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and it's not easy to build a non-boring product. But I think ultimately what matters a lot here to build something great is to first and foremost build it, think about the functionality and the simplicity. Like, great products are very simple, but the biggest second thing is really thinking about the emotion, and emotion really can help to drive product adoption. So beyond mastering your functional kind of features, you need to master, what is the emotions that you're aiming your users to really have when they're using your product. And ultimately, people use product to feel something, whether they want to find love, they want to save money, they want to play. And I think in our space as well, which is all about creating emotions for teams to feel better connected, the emotional part is actually even more so important than just like the simplicity of the product. So we have really thought about that through the kind of entire platform in terms of how do you build in moments in the software that kind of creates a smile for people? So everything from thinking about customized emojis in the platform and a fun 404 page, or you actually don't really know what you're gonna get until you're in the product. I think anything that you kind of know beforehand it becomes a little bit like you already know what you're getting yourself into. So you need an element of surprise and delightfulness in order to actually get out that smile out of your users. So for us, that was really, really key to kind of review the entire product from a perspective of like, where are the moments that we can bring smiles and do it consistently. So we also every month update things like colors or create something new. We don't tell the users about it, they just experience it. And I think that helps to really also just instate that like small emotions that makes it anti-boring. Then I think it's also about finding a few elements. In our case, we decided to go for our icon from the logo that you kind of use repetitively. I think repetition creates identification, so it helps with like brand building. So we decided also throughout, you kind of see our logo, for instance, all the loading screens in the platform are our floating logo in different colors. So it's just, really thinking through how you kind of, it's a little bit the aesthetic of the product ultimately. And since we work a lot with experiences and activities that we do for teams, we actually think about them a little bit as how you market like a new movie coming out, meaning that, from the first poster that you see about the movie, that needs to make you so intrigued to just want to care for watching the trailer. And then you go into the movie, and throughout the movie, you need to create different emotions. And ideally, it leaves you with something that you tell your friends about. So we thought very much the same of like how everything from the start of the name of the activity to the actual, how it takes you through. And I think those things, and then just, getting inspiration for the product from across multiple disciplinaries. Like for my case, not that I'm sure that our tech and product teams love that, but I always create mood boards from other disciplines, whether it's interior design or museums, travel, fashion, and actually make that an inspiration for software as well. So I think building, even a software product is a form of art, and you need to kind of bring in those elements and the aesthetic to really ensure that it becomes anti-boring.
I love that. And so we talked a lot about emotions and how that's important in a product, but can we talk a little bit more about the cultural part? Like, why is culture so important? I know it's the word of the hour, everyone's talking about startup culture, but why is it actually so important?
Yeah, I think ultimately, like, if you don't have a strong culture and don't invest in culture, I think, you will fail on almost all fronts. I think, not only will productivity suffer, engagement, but ultimately that impacts performance. And I think, your ability to hire and retain talent is going to be really difficult. And I think it also can serve as a very strong differentiator that it's really hard to copy. I think a feature can be copied by other competitors, but I think, your culture and the feeling and the principles, values, how you act, behave, and speak as a group is much harder to copy. And I think it's also that feeling that attracts great performers, whether that's, the people you want to hire, whether it's getting great investors on board. I think that's something that, helps to really distinguish you as well as a team. So I think it's very key, and ultimately in a competitive market where it's hard to hire talent, means you have to focus on it even more.
Yeah. And so, a startup's journey is never a straight line that goes up and to the right. There's always bumps in the road. And so you raised your seed round with us. But can you talk a little bit about the hard moments, when things didn't go right? How did you manage to keep delight, to keep a robust culture in the face of challenges?
Yeah. I think first and foremost also the challenges and the hard times is actually where the culture really comes to life most and where it matters most, because it's really kind of how you make how you do turn that around into something that actually fuels the team still with positive emotions. And I think similarly to how you within a product needs to think about the emotions that you enable, I think with the acts of principles and values that you create, you need to think about the emotions that your culture gives your employees, essentially. And I think throughout the hard times, so in our case, we started slightly pre-COVID, suddenly COVID happened, and we needed to shift our focus slightly to adapt to this huge market change that happened. And then, fundraising, I think for any founder, it's not, it can be hard, and you will get rejection. And even the founders that are, preempted and raised fast, and they still know how it feels to get a rejection email. So I think it's a lot of okay, what do you do with that? And I think in the beginning it sucks to get those types of things, but you learn also fast how to handle it. And in our case, I think we turned that around into something that you almost not make fun of, but you almost compare the, how good are the rejections, and what can you learn from it? And you just took it in a very much more lighthearted way, and we kind of all just discussed it. And I think my co-founders, Darshak and Ellie, were awesome supporters there in terms of okay, on to the next, this, we learned this, now this. So I think it's really about, and that comes down to also culture, how, in startups, there will be so many hard moments, and the way you kind of instill and what you, the behaviors that you accept and not accept, and what you really prove in those moments sets you apart as well. And I think you can come back really, really strong from a negative, moment in time if you just know how to, master these injections of positive emotions to get everyone into let's do it anyway, and we continue.
And maybe a final point regarding culture. So cultures can be pretty similar, but then also very distinct. What do the early usage patterns of your, dozens of clients that are using Unlock really tell you about the different ways in which companies build culture?
Yeah, I think it ultimately comes down to that culture is not something that can be stated on any slide, website, or career page. It needs to be practiced, and you need to have regular habits and rituals in place and time for it to actually happen and really ensure that it works. And I think that's the key thing that Unlock helps to do, really, that the best customers and users that we have, they actually find it very effective to have designated times to set those rituals. But it's key that the rituals, or the context and content of what you do during those times together, actually is constantly different. It needs to bring, again, back the emotions. Otherwise it very easily becomes boring. People won't join, your kind of motivation and engagement drops. And if the employees kind of really feel that actually these moments are something you almost don't want to miss out. You know there will be a delightful moment, there will be a surprise. It's something then you really want to do. Like, it's a shared experience that you will talk about, and you will fear that you have like missed out on something if you didn't participate. So I think, really setting the rituals and timings, but ensure that the variation and the way you add emotions constantly shift. And we do that through providing all of those for you in the platform as well, so that the team and managers just can focus on coming and showing up. And I think also it's again coming back to that. Culture is even more so of the things you say no to, like the things you actually ultimately decide and show your team that actually let's not do that way. And I think it's not about creating just like a nice feel-good culture always, but also a culture that attracts good performance and motivates everyone to have impact and have create great things together. All of that will also give you individual happiness in the end.
Thank you so much.
Yay!
So now we're going to switch things around.
Exactly. Now we're switching the gears from hearing about building a boring anti-boring product. Super curious to hear from the investor side. Like, how do you actually build an anti-boring fund?
Yeah, so it's a question that at La Famiglia we take very seriously. I mean, I think you can tell by our name that we went for something that is slightly unconventional. Some people still think we're the mafia or the mob, which we're not. Or if we are, we're the nice mafia. But I think the thing that we really care about is being different. And, I think there's a movie that recently came out, King Richard, and it's all about, the young Serena Williams, and the tennis trainer asks her, who do you want to play like when you grow up? And she says, who do I want to play like? Like, I want people to play like me, And I think when we started the fund, we're one of the few female-led funds in Europe. Jeanette, my other partner in the fund, she has 4 little kids. We have a very diverse team. Like, we didn't see a single fund in Europe that we could point to and say, we want to be like them when we're kind of, established. So we really thought about, okay, what is the difference in our fund culture and how can we really embrace that? And I think it comes down to a couple of things. I think the first one is the different perspectives that everyone in our team has. I always jokingly say, even though we have folks who worked in iBanking or worked at McKinsey in the past, like the very classic kind of career paths into venture, if we were to stop ever being venture capital investors, we would probably be philosophists, we would be authors, we would be musicians. We have Simba on our team who actually, before joining La Famiglia, worked for Apple trying to spot young and emerging music artists. So we have this like very eclectic mix of team members that bring very different perspectives to the kind of, legacy mindset that, venture has seen for many decades. I think that's the first thing. I think the other thing, and again, the diversity of our team and the backgrounds really helps here, is we're very low ego, right? And I think ego is what gets into the way of many great companies. I've certainly seen it in like every second boardroom I'm in. It's like there's a lot of ego. It gets in the way in terms of like having good board dynamics. And so we make a really, really, really strong point around low ego culture. And we always say we win together as a team. If I see an interesting company and I think we really want to win that investment, I try and pull everyone in the team in that can help us do that. And it's never about how can I shine, it's about how can the firm shine and how can we together achieve the best outcome. I think the third thing really is kind of a strong service mindset, right? I think at the end of the day, within venture, we serve the founders that we invest in. And I think, especially with a lot of the recent trends in venture, a lot of the focus has somehow gotten to just the fact that you're a venture capitalist, and that kind of becomes a purpose in itself, when I think that's never the purpose. We should always be the ones standing behind our founders, standing behind amazing folks like you that we get, the chance to invest with. And then all of our job and energy and focus should be in kind of paving a path forward to you. And so that's another thing, together with the low ego criteria that we really care about and try to screen for. And all of that, then makes for very anti-boring culture. You also get great coffee and Aperol Spritz when you come to our office, rather than some fancy energy drink. But everything is about being different and embracing that.
That's awesome. No, and it can definitely testify to being attracted to that when we were fundraising as well. And curious to hear, how do you then, I guess there's a lot of founders here too that are looking to raise funds soon. How do you kind of get excited and evaluate a founder? Do you care about them being anti-boring and vibing with them, or what's important there for you to really want to do the deal?
It's a super great question, and it's very difficult because it's different for every founder, but I think there's a couple of common criteria that we'd like to see. So I think one thing, and I've actually seen that with a lot of the kind of Gen Z members of our team, there's slight dissent or a lack of consensus on this point. I don't think you need to vibe with a founder. And by vibe with a founder, I mean I don't think you need to be friends. I do invest in founders that I'd love being friends with, but I also invest in founders where I'm like, actually, I think very highly of this person, but we probably wouldn't be, kind of a duo that would have a deep, deep friendship outside, kind of the founder-investor relationship. And I think that especially for Gen Z, these values are sometimes different, and they care a lot about, kind of, is this founder someone that I would want to hang out with and I would want to be my friend? And I think at the end of the day, very, very different founders can have very different kind of value sets and mindsets, and there needs to be alignment and a productive way forward, but it's less about this friendship aspect. It's more about the productive, challenging, and communication aspect. But I think one thing that we always want to see in founders that we back is a strong way of seeing something in a market that other people don't yet see. We sometimes call it the reality distortion field. And so, I had a founder, actually one of our founders in the second fund, who had this fantastic way of breaking down the market that they're in. He said, Judith, people in this market think that there's a game to be played, but they're playing the wrong game. And what he said is, there's some games that have very simple rules, but it's very difficult to play them well. Chess, for example, being one of those games. And then there's other games that have incredibly complex rules, but when you learn the rules, it's actually incredibly easy to play. And in my market, everyone thinks it's like a chess-type market, so the rules are simple, but it's just about playing them in a very sophisticated way, when actually they don't understand that the rules are incredibly difficult and, kind of changing the logic of the market and changing the way that your product works. And so I think it's these insights when founders, despite all the things that are going on in their market, in their product, and all the things that customers want from them, they see something in a very, very sharp way, and they make you understand that the world doesn't work in ABC, it actually works in CBA. And then I think the third thing is just the fact that founders are really able to show one very clear strength. Some founders are just fantastic at selling. They could sell anything. I mean, literally anything. Other founders just have an insane product design finesse. Other founders are just great leaders. They can just rally people around them, and they can just, fill that room. And so we always want to see one very clear quality that makes them clearly stand out from their set of peers in a market, such that that quality will be able to really push them ahead in the competitive game that they're playing.
Awesome. No, super interesting. And I'm curious to hear, speaking about kind of cultures and rituals and what you need to put in place as a company. You've backed multiple companies. You see a lot of habits and rituals that they're having individually. And curious to hear, what's one of the craziest habits you've seen in a company?
Yeah, so I think two companies that really come to mind from our portfolio. One is Deal and the founder, Alex. I mean, they were just in the news because of fantastic revenue development. But I think one thing that we spotted in Alex from the very early days is he's just one of the most insane high energy communicators. He has a response time that I've never seen in my life. And he still gets so much work done, but somehow he has this ability, this gravitational force that he's able to kind of form around him, where suddenly, whenever you meet him, whenever you're in a room with him, you leave with 10 to-dos that you really want to get done for him, because he's just so responsive and just is able to have this multi-vector into any room and be able to kind of, rally people behind him and make them work, on behalf of the company and on behalf of the direction they're running into. The other example is actually the founder that introduced us. His name is Andre from a company called GraphiApp. And so I think Andre also has, one of these crazy anti-boring, strengths, which is he's just able to inspire incredible emotion within people, right? And so he's also running a remote company. I think in remote settings, it's even more important to be very expressive in your communication, because kind of through a Zoom screen, you lose a lot of the things that you would get kind of when you're meeting face to face otherwise. And I always, whenever I meet him on a Zoom or I see him interacting with his team on a Zoom, I always think he's the perfect circus director, right? He's just standing in the middle of the circus and he's just orchestrating, and you almost think it's the guy kind of playing with the balls and you're adding another ball, and he's just able to keep them in flow. So he has this incredible, almost storytelling ability that, you kind of get into a room, he starts speaking, and you drop and forget everything you say and just are mesmerized by his ability to evoke emotion, evoke images, and just, show the bigger picture and bigger vision. So those are certainly two qualities that I'm very, very impressed by in terms of our portfolio companies.
Fully agree, and having chatted and knowing, especially Andre, I definitely agree. It's you leave with this impression that it's just like, wow, let's do it now. And maybe curious here as a last point, I think everyone is seeing a little bit, speaking about the fundraising side, that like market seems to be a little bit down in terms of, is it a good time or not to raise? Like, what do you see from your perspective in terms of founders trying to go out there now? And is there anything they can do to get your attention better?
Yeah, so we actually, from the early kind of 2020s, we had a saying at La Famiglia, which was, we're living in the world of two Bs. Bubble and boom at the same time. In 2020, 2021 was all about the boom, but everyone knew the music would stop playing. Everyone knew it, and now people are kind of like shocked the music actually stopped playing, but like this was coming big time. And I'm always surprised by, seeing the level of surprise that the market is in right now. But so talking about, the bubble, I actually think, there is reason to be concerned. If you look at, we've gone through COVID, then, we're currently still, unfortunately, going through a horrible war. We're going through inflation. We're going through energy prices, supply chain disruptions, more inflation. And so we've seen public market multiples for tech companies come down way, a lot. I think we're not even hitting, the bottom of where that's going to bring us in the future. I think there's more to come. And so I think that does, raise really important questions for especially growth stage companies. I think, it is important, and we're certainly doing this. I know a lot of other funds are also doing this, to have, conversations around burn, around, kind of efficiency, around profitability. And I think it is a challenging time, certainly for many companies, to go out fundraising now. But at the same time, I think the other thing that especially early stage companies need to be aware of is, I think the PitchBook numbers from last year showed that we saw a record high in terms of new companies being started. And after kind of all the challenges we saw at Fast, at Peloton, at Instacart, we all saw these lists of people and of talent that were freeing up, and everyone in the startup ecosystem was sharing these lists, and everyone was trying to get their hands on the Peloton or Fast engineers. And so I think there's something really positive about kind of the talent ecosystem that's also being created, because talent liquidity means that talent's freeing up to form, new ideas, to join other companies, maybe at the earlier stages. And so I think overall, for early stage companies, I still very much believe that in the long run, we're definitely still living through kind of the boom of European technology. It's like the roaring 20s of European tech. And so I think, it's important to take the challenges and the headwinds we're facing very seriously. It's important to be responsible, but at the same time, it's also important to keep the faith and just keep pushing forward.
Awesome, cool. I see that we're about time here, but maybe we just end at the last point, because I think we very much agree on that one when it comes to kind of any VC startup myth that we like to kill. So maybe go ahead and tell what you think there.
So I think one myth that obviously sitting here on the stage, I think both Marie and I want to kill. I think there's a lot of negative emotion and negative commentary about women, in venture, women founding companies. And I think, it's important to point out all the facts that are wrong about this venture ecosystem and all the ways in which we can do better. But I think we're like the best examples for more positivity in the market. I think largely speaking, for all the women in this room, folks out there are not out to get you. Like, we're all cheering for you. All the men are cheering for you. All the women are cheering for you. And I would certainly, and I know you feel the same, would love to just hear more positive, kind of uplifting, stories about how the venture ecosystem is actually really, really supportive. And we're still facing huge challenges, and we're addressing them. But I think overall, we're here to stay, and we're here to win. And that's an important message that I think we need to hear more.
Awesome. No, I fully agree, and I think that's the key. And ultimately, it's the mindset, both in building an anti-boring company, but also to be able to do this journey and to raise funds and everything. It comes down to thinking and knowing that you can do it, and no one has it figured out, so you will figure it out throughout the way, and trusting that you will find the right people to hire, or the right partners and funds to back you, and hopefully your journey can be really positive that way as well. Awesome. Thank you everyone so much, and enjoy the conference.